The crystal champagne flute trembles in my hand as I watch my sister glide down the aisle, her wedding dress worth more than my annual salary. My presence here is a mistake. I know at the moment I catch Mother's glacial stare from the front row. Eden. That's me, the uninvited sister, the family disappointment who dared to show up at Brooke's perfect society wedding. I sink deeper into my seat at the back of the grand ballroom, praying the elaborate flower arrangements will shield me from more hostile glances. Can you believe she had the nerve to come? A stage whisper carries from 2 rows ahead. After what happened with the clinic, I grip Ryan's hand beside me. My husband squeezes back, his silent support the only thing keeping me from fleeing. Our 7-year-old daughter Lily fidgets in her Sunday best, oblivious to the tension crackling through the air like static before a storm. The string quartet transitions to the wedding march. Brooke reaches the altar where her fiancé Daniel waits, both of them picture perfect. Father beams as he gives her away, his pride radiating across the room. The same father who told me 10 years ago that I was dead to him. If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. The words barely leave the officiant's lips when Mother stands, her designer heels clicking against marble as she turns to face the crowd. Her gaze locks onto mine. I apologize, everyone, but we have an uninvited guest who needs to leave. Her voice carries clearly through the hushed room. Eden, you were explicitly told you are not welcome at family events. This is a private ceremony. 200 faces swivel toward me. Lily shrinks against my side. Mommy, why is Grandma mad? Brooke's perfectly painted lips curve into a smirk. Security, please escort my former sister out. She's trying to ruin my special day as usual. Former sister? Lily's small voice cracks. But Aunt Brooke, I'm not your aunt, dear. Brooke's words slice through the air. Your mother lost the right to call herself family years ago when she betrayed us all. 2 security guards materialize beside our row. Ryan stands, positioning himself between them and me. We're leaving. No need for force. How dare you bring a child into this mess, Eden? Mother's voice drips with venom. Trying to manipulate us with an innocent girl. You haven't changed at all. My cheeks burn as we shuffle past bewildered guests. Lily's hand trembles in mine. The whispers follow us like poison darts. Always was the troubled one. Such a shame what she did to her poor parents. That poor child, having her for a mother. At the ballroom doors, I pause and turn. Brooke stands triumphant at the altar, father and mother flanking her like proud sentries. The perfect family tableau, minus the black sheep daughter they erased. Congratulations, Brooke. My voice carries clearly across the silence. I hope your marriage is built on more honest foundations than the rest of your life. Her smile falters for just a moment. Good. Let her wonder what I know. In the lobby, Lily bursts into tears. Why don't they love us, Mommy? I gather her close, meeting Ryan's worried gaze over her head. He knows what this means. The careful peace I've maintained for years has shattered. They forced my hand by humiliating me in front of my daughter. Some people, sweetheart, aren't capable of real love. I stroke her hair, my resolve hardening with each sob. But that's about to change. 10 years I've stayed away, swallowing their lies. 10 years of watching Brooke build her perfect life on stolen dreams and buried secrets. But seeing my daughter cry, that's the final straw. They want to talk about betrayal? Fine. Time to show them what real betrayal looks like. I've got nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Game on, dear sister, game on. The drive home from Brooke's wedding feels endless. Lily's fallen asleep in the back seat, tear tracks still visible on her cheeks. Ryan's knuckles are white on the steering wheel, and the silence between us stretches like a rubber band about to snap. You shouldn't have gone, he finally says, voice low to avoid waking Lily. We talked about this. I trace the edge of my phone screen, where dozens of social media notifications flash about the incident. They made my daughter cry, Ryan. Our daughter. And whose fault is that? You knew exactly what would happen. He takes the exit toward our neighborhood, his jaw tight. You wanted it to happen. The accusation hits harder than I expect. Maybe because there's truth in it. Pull over. Eden, pull over, now. He guides the car into an empty parking lot. I step out, needing air that isn't thick with unspoken words. The night air is cool against my flushed skin as I pace between faded parking lines. Ryan follows, leaving the car running for Lily. Talk to me, what's really going on? Did you see her face? The way she looked at me? My laugh sounds brittle. Perfect Brooke with her perfect lies. You know what she told everyone about why I was disowned? You never wanted to discuss it before. She told them I stole from the clinic, embezzled money meant for patient care. The words taste like acid. Meanwhile, she's working there now, right alongside father, probably. I stop myself, remembering Ryan doesn't know everything, not yet. He steps closer, concern etched in his features. Probably what? My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. I know what really happened 10 years ago. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. Carson Street Coffee. Eden. Ryan's hand on my shoulder makes me jump. What aren't you telling me? I show him the text. His expression darkens. Could be a trap. Your family might not be my family. I turn back toward the car. Someone at the clinic knows something. Someone who was there when everything fell apart. And you're just going to meet this mysterious person? After what happened today? He catches my arm. Think about Lily. About us. I am thinking about us. I pull away gently. That's why I need to do this. They humiliated our daughter, Ryan. Made her question everything about who she is, who I am. So this is about revenge? This is about truth. I watch Lily sleeping through the car window, peaceful despite everything. Brooke built her whole life on lies. The clinic, her marriage to Daniel, her reputation, all of it constructed on the ruins of what she took from me. Ryan runs a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognize from a decade of marriage. He's worried, but he's listening. What exactly are you planning? Nothing yet, but if someone's finally willing to talk. I meet his gaze steadily. I need to know if you're with me. Really with me, not just standing on the sidelines while I fight this battle alone. He's quiet for a long moment, studying me. You're different tonight. There's something in your eyes I haven't seen before. Maybe because I finally see things clearly. I step closer, taking his hands. Remember when we first met? You said I was carrying too many ghosts. You were right, but they weren't ghosts, Ryan. They were monsters wearing my family's faces, and I let them haunt me for too long. A car passes, its headlights sweeping across us. In that brief illumination, I see understanding dawn in Ryan's expression. He pulls me into a tight embrace. I'm with you, he whispers against my hair. But we do this smart. We do this right. No more improvised confrontations. Agreed. I breathe in his familiar scent, drawing strength from his solid presence. Tomorrow at the coffee shop, come with me. Watch from a distance. Make sure it's not a setup. Of course, he pulls back, cupping my face. But Eden, promise me something. Whatever we learn, whatever happens, we protect Lily first. Always. Always, I agree, even as part of me whispers that protection sometimes means fighting back. Sometimes means burning everything down to build something better from the ashes. In the car, Lily stirs slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Looking at her, I feel my resolve harden like steel. Brooke and my parents thought they could shame me into disappearing again. Instead, they've given me exactly what I needed, a reason to stop running and start fighting back. Tomorrow, I'll meet my mysterious messenger. Tomorrow, I'll start gathering the matches needed to set this whole facade ablaze. But tonight, I'll hold my daughter and remember why the truth matters more than any comfortable lie. Carson Street Coffee buzzes with afternoon regulars when I spot her. Sarah Chen, our family clinic's former accountant, hunched over a laptop in the corner. Ryan catches my eye from his position at the counter, a silent confirmation that he's watching. I slide into the seat across from Sarah. Her fingers tremble slightly as she closes her laptop. I wasn't sure you'd come. 10 years is a long time to stay quiet. I keep my voice neutral, though my pulse races. Why now? She glances around nervously. Your sister's wedding was all over social media. When I saw what they did to you, she pulls out a USB drive. There's something you need to see. The drive feels impossibly heavy in my palm. What's on it? Financial records. From before you left. Sarah leans forward, lowering her voice. Your father didn't just frame you for embezzlement, Eden. He actively covered up Brooke's mistakes. Massive ones. My coffee arrives. Ryan's subtle way of staying close. Sarah flinches at his approach. The patient death in 2013, she continues once he's gone. Remember? How could I forget? A terminal cancer patient died after receiving experimental treatment. The investigation cleared the clinic, but what about it? Brooke administered the wrong dosage. She wasn't qualified, hadn't even completed her medical training. Your father buried it, paid off the family. Sarah's words hit like physical blows. He used the money he accused you of stealing. The coffee cup rattles against the saucer as I set it down. You have proof. Everything's on that drive, including evidence that Brooke never finished medical school. The credentials she's using at the clinic, all falsified. My throat tightens. Why didn't you come forward back then? Your father threatened my family. My daughter was sick. I needed the insurance. Shame colors her face. But she's grown now, and I saw what happened at the wedding, the way they're still hurting you. My phone buzzes. A text from Brooke. Having coffee with anyone interesting? I look up sharply. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of Daniel's car pulling away. They're watching me, Sarah realizes, panic edging into her voice. I shouldn't have. It's okay. I stand, offering her my arm. Let my husband drive you home. Ryan appears instantly, reading the situation. As he escorts Sarah out, I text Brooke back. Just catching up with old friends. How's married life? Her response is immediate. Stay away from Sarah Chen. Some stories should stay buried. I pocket the USB drive, my mind racing. Another text arrives, from father this time. My office, 1 hour. Come alone or Sarah loses everything. The threat is clear, but something's different now. The trembling in my hands isn't fear, it's anticipation. At the clinic, father's secretary tries to stop me. I brush past her, pushing into his office where he and Brooke wait. That was quick, Brooke says, but her usual smugness wavers. Enough games. I face father across his desk. You want to threaten Sarah? Go ahead. But first, explain something. How many other patients did Brooke kill? The color drains from his face. Brooke steps forward. You don't know what you're talking about. 2013, terminal cancer patient, wrong dosage. I watch their reactions. Ring any bells? You've clearly lost your mind, father starts, but I cut him off. Funny thing about buried secrets. Someone always keeps receipts. I pull out my phone, playing the recording of my conversation with Sarah. Wonder what the medical board would think. Brooke lunges for my phone. I sidestep easily, watching her facade crack. You're bluffing. Try me. I meet father's gaze. You destroyed my life to protect her, framed me for theft, erased me from the family, all to cover up her mistakes. I did what was necessary. His voice is ice. Brooke had potential. You were always difficult. Difficult? I laugh. The sound sharp enough to make them both flinch. I was the only one telling the truth. And now I have proof. What do you want? Brooke demands. I move toward the door, pausing with my hand on the handle. Want? I want you both to know what's coming. Every lie, every cover-up, every patient you've put at risk. It all comes out. And this time? I smile, feeling decades of pain crystallize into purpose. This time, I'm not the one who'll disappear. Their protests follow me out, but I don't look back. In my pocket, the USB drive holds enough truth to burn their perfect world to ash. Let them try to stop me. I'm not that scared little girl anymore. I'm the one they should fear. The USB drive's contents spill across my laptop screen. Financial records, falsified credentials, patient records. Each document adds another brick to the wall of evidence against my family. But it's an email thread between mother and father that makes my hands shake. You need to see this. I turn the screen toward Ryan, who's been pacing our home office. He leans in, scanning the text. His jaw tightens. They knew about the other patients. 3 more deaths, all covered up. My voice sounds distant to my own ears. All blamed on equipment malfunctions or natural causes. The doorbell rings. Through the window, I glimpse Daniel's expensive car in our driveway. Ryan moves toward the door, but I catch his arm. Let me handle this. Daniel looks nothing like the confident man from Brooke's wedding. His tie is loose, dark circles under his eyes. We need to talk, Eden. I lead him to the kitchen, deliberately choosing not to offer him anything. He fidgets with his wedding ring. Brooke told me what you have. He glances toward my laptop. Whatever they're offering you. They? Who's offering me what? The medical board investigators. He runs a hand through disheveled hair. They approached me yesterday, asked about inconsistencies in Brooke's credentials. My pulse quickens, but I keep my expression neutral. I haven't spoken to any investigators. Don't lie to me. His voice cracks. I know what she did. What they all did. I've been reviewing the clinic's records since the wedding. And I can't. He swallows hard. I have evidence too. Things even you don't know about. But if this gets out, it won't just destroy Brooke and your parents. There are other people involved. Good people who are just following orders. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Your daughter's school just received an anonymous tip about possible abuse in your home. CPS has been notified. The room tilts slightly. Daniel notices my reaction. They're desperate, he says quietly. They'll do anything to keep this quiet. They're threatening my daughter. The words come out like ice shards. Let me help you. Daniel leans forward. I can get you money. Enough to disappear. Start fresh somewhere else. Just hand over the evidence. Ryan appears in the doorway, his presence steady. I think you should leave. You don't understand. Daniel stands. They won't stop. Mark's already called in favors with local authorities. They'll fabricate evidence against you, Eden. They'll take Lily. Get out. My voice doesn't shake. Tell my sister and my parents they just made their biggest mistake. After he leaves, Ryan holds me as I shake. Not with fear, but with rage. We need to move fast, he says. If they're involving Lily, no. I pull away, my mind crystallizing around a new plan. We're not running. Call your sister at the newspaper. It's time everyone knew exactly who the Millers really are. Eden, they want to play dirty, fine. I grab my phone, dialing Sarah's number, but they forgot something important. What's that? I learned from the best. I meet his worried gaze. They taught me how to destroy someone's life. Now they get to see how well I paid attention. Sarah answers on the first ring. Eden, they're here. Police with a warrant. Upload everything. Now, every file, every record, every piece of evidence. Send it to the email I gave you. But, trust me. I hang up, turning to Ryan. Call the school, get Lily. Then call every reporter your sister knows. In an hour, the Miller family clinic is going to become breaking news. This is it, then. Ryan studies my face. No turning back. I think of Lily, innocent and precious, now a target in their desperate game. Of Sarah, probably being arrested right now. Of every patient who died because of Brooke's lies and my parents' cover-ups. They chose this path. I start typing, preparing the email that will detonate my family's carefully constructed world. I'm just making sure they walk it all the way to the end. As I hit send, watching hundreds of damning documents wing their way to dozens of news outlets, I feel something shift inside me. The scared daughter seeking approval dies. In her place rises someone stronger, someone forged in betrayal and tempered by righteous fury. Let them come for me. I'm ready. The headlines explode across every local news outlet by morning. Miller Family Clinic under investigation. Multiple deaths linked to fraudulent doctor. Prominent family faces criminal charges. I watch the clinic's parking lot from my car, counting the reporters swarming like hungry sharks. Mother emerges first, perfectly composed until camera flashes blind her. She stumbles, mask slipping for just a moment. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing. Missed calls from unknown numbers, text messages ranging from threats to desperate pleas. I ignore them all, waiting. Finally, Brooke appears, Daniel trailing behind her. Even from this distance, I can see she's been crying. Good. A tap on my window makes me jump. Ryan stands outside, expression grim. I roll down the window. The medical board just arrived, he says, and Eden, Sarah's dead. The world stops. What? Car accident last night. They're calling it a suicide. My hands grip the steering wheel until my knuckles turn white. When? Right after the police left her house. Ryan's voice drops. Eden, there's more. The evidence she uploaded, most of it's corrupted. They got to the servers somehow. A bitter laugh escapes me. Of course they did. We should go home. This isn't safe. Mrs. Miller. A reporter spots me, and suddenly they're all running toward my car. I start the engine, but not before catching Brooke's expression as she realizes I'm here. For a moment, our eyes meet across the parking lot. She mouths something. Not a threat or a plea, just 2 words. I'm sorry. The drive home is silent. Ryan keeps glancing at me, waiting for the breakdown that won't come. Sarah's death should devastate me, should make me question everything. Instead, it hardens something inside me. We find Mother sitting in our living room. How did you get in? Ryan demands, moving protectively in front of me. I raised her. Mother's voice is eerily calm. I still have her spare key from when she was young. Get out, I say, but she raises her hand, revealing a familiar USB drive. Looking for this? She sets it on the coffee table. Your father says hello, by the way. He's meeting with the board right now, explaining how his troubled daughter fabricated evidence to destroy her sister out of jealousy. Sarah's dead. Yes. She doesn't even flinch. Tragic. Depression is a terrible thing. You killed her. Prove it. She stands, smoothing her expensive skirt. Like you'll need to prove all your other accusations, now that the evidence is gone. Your father's lawyers are very good at their jobs. Ryan steps forward, but I catch his arm. Let her talk. We're willing to be generous, Eden. Mother's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Leave town. Take your family somewhere far away. We'll provide enough money to start fresh. Or stay and watch everything you love burn. She moves toward the door. Lily's such a sweet child. It would be awful if Child Protective Services found evidence of abuse, or if Ryan's newspaper suddenly discovered financial irregularities in his records. You're threatening a child? Ryan's voice shakes with rage. Your own granddaughter? I'm protecting my family. Mother pauses at the door. You have 24 hours to decide. Choose wisely. After she leaves, Ryan holds me as I shake, not with fear or grief, but with a cold fury that threatens to consume me. We can't let them win, he whispers. We won't. I pull away, moving to my laptop. Sarah may be gone, but she wasn't the only one with evidence. Eden. They killed her, Ryan. They'll destroy us if we run. My fingers fly across the keyboard, accessing encrypted files I've been gathering for weeks. But they forgot something important about cornered animals. What's that? I turn the screen toward him, showing dozens of audio recordings, surveillance photos, and backed-up documents, a parallel investigation I've been running alongside Sarah's. They fight hardest when they have nothing left to lose. I start composing emails to every major news outlet in the country. Mother wants to play games with my daughter's safety. Fine. Let's see how she likes it when the whole world knows exactly what kind of monster she really is. This could backfire spectacularly, Ryan warns. Probably. I hit send, watching the emails disappear into cyberspace. But I'm done playing by their rules. The first national news alert pings on my phone minutes later. The war has begun, and this time, I'm not fighting to expose the truth. I'm fighting to destroy them completely. The police arrive at 3 in the morning. I watch from our bedroom window as they lead Ryan away in handcuffs, their accusations echoing in the quiet street. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. All fabricated, all perfectly crafted to destroy him. Lily sleeps through it, thank God. I stand in her doorway afterward, watching her peaceful breathing, knowing I caused this. My phone vibrates, father's number. Satisfied. His voice carries decades of practiced authority. This is just the beginning, Eden. Walk away now, or tomorrow it's your daughter's school calling with concerns about her home life. I end the call without speaking. My hands shake as I pack Lily's overnight bag. Clothes, her favorite stuffed animal, the photo album she loves. Ryan's sister Claire arrives within the hour. It's just for a few days, I tell Lily when she wakes, confused and frightened, like a vacation with Aunt Claire. But what about Daddy? What about you? I hold her tight, breathing in her familiar scent. We'll fix everything, I promise. After they leave, the house feels like a tomb. I pour myself a drink, but before I can take a sip, someone pounds on the front door. Brooke stands on my porch, mascara streaked down her face. They're going to kill you. What? She pushes past me, frantically checking windows and doors. I heard them talking. Father hired someone. They're making it look like a break-in gone wrong. Why are you telling me this? Because Sarah was my friend too. Her voice cracks. And I can't have another death on my conscience. I study my sister, really look at her for the first time in years. The perfect facade has crumbled, revealing someone as broken as I am. Daniel left me, she continues. The medical board revoked my license. Everything's falling apart and they don't even care. They're just worried about protecting themselves. Like they always have been. She grabs my arm. You need to run. Now. Take what you can and... Headlights sweep across the windows. Brooke freezes. They're here. Get out the back, I tell her, already moving toward my laptop. I need 2 minutes. Eden, go. As she slips away, I quickly upload everything I have to multiple secure servers. The front door splinters under heavy boots just as I hit send. 2 men enter, faces obscured. Professional, clinical. I recognize the look, the same cold efficiency Father always praised in his business dealings. Mrs. Collins. The taller one approaches slowly. This can be easy or hard, your choice. I back away, buying seconds as the files upload. My father sent his regards. The Millers send their condolences about your tragic accident. A noise from the kitchen makes them turn. Brooke stands there, phone raised. I'm live streaming. Everything. The men hesitate. In that moment, I lunge for the front door, but the shorter one catches me. Pain explodes across my face as he strikes me. Through blurred vision, I see Brooke tackle him. Run! I stumble into the street, blood in my mouth, ears ringing. Behind me, glass shatters. A scream, Brooke's or mine, I'm not sure. Neighbors' lights flick on. A car starts somewhere. The men emerge from my house, walking unhurried to their vehicle, professional to the end. I find Brooke unconscious in my kitchen, her phone crushed nearby, but she's breathing, and as sirens wail in the distance, she stirs. Did you get it? She mumbles. The evidence? Yes. I help her sit up, noting the bruises already forming. Why did you come back? Because I remember. She touches her split lip gingerly. Before they turned us against each other. I remember when you were my big sister and I miss that person. The sirens grow closer. Soon there will be questions, statements, more lies from our parents. Ryan's still in jail. Lily's away. Everything I've built lies in ruins around me. But Brooke's words echo in my head. Big sister. Something shifts inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. We were both victims of our parents' manipulation, turned against each other for their benefit. We have to end this, I say, as red and blue lights paint my kitchen walls. Not just expose them, destroy them completely. Brooke meets my gaze, and for the first time in decades, I see my sister instead of my enemy. Together, I take her hand, feeling the weight of all our shared scars and separate wounds. Together. The police arrive to find us like that, bloodied but unbowed, finally united against the real monsters in our story. Let our parents think they've won. Their perfect family fantasy is about to become their worst nightmare. The Miller Family Clinic's annual charity gala becomes our battlefield. Brooke and I move through the crowd separately, watching our parents work the room like nothing's wrong, like they didn't try to have me killed last week. Mrs. Collins, a board member, catches my arm. Surprised to see you here, given the circumstances. I smile, channeling Mother's perfect social mask. I wouldn't miss it. Across the room, Father takes the podium. Welcome, everyone. Tonight we celebrate 30 years of serving our community. Brooke signals from near the AV booth. Everything's ready. I check my phone. Ryan's lawyer confirms the charges are dropped, the real evidence of financial manipulation traced back to Father's accounts. And now, Father continues, I'd like to share a video highlighting our clinic's achievements. The lights dim, but instead of the planned presentation, security footage fills the screen. Father in his office, counting cash, Mother threatening Sarah, patient records being altered, each clip dated, documented, damning. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Father fumbles with the microphone, but his voice is drowned out by the audio of him ordering the hit on me. Turn it off, Mother shrieks, but Brooke holds the door to the AV booth closed. Why? I step forward, my voice carrying across the stunned silence. Isn't this what we're celebrating? 30 years of fraud, corruption, and murder. Security, Father bellows, but the officers I hired stand firm. They work for me tonight. I move closer to the podium. Just like the private investigators who've been watching you, the forensic accountants tracking your bribes, the lawyers building cases for every family you've destroyed. Mother lunges for me, her carefully maintained composure shattering. You ungrateful... Careful, Mother. Brooke emerges from the crowd. The press is recording. Indeed, cameras flash as reporters, invited anonymously, capture every moment. You planned this together? Father's face contorts with rage. My own daughters. Your daughters? I laugh, the sound sharp as broken glass. You tried to kill me last week. You framed my husband. You threatened my child. Everything I did was to protect this family. He grabs my arm, fingers digging in painfully. Let her go. Brooke's voice carries steel. Or I tell them about Jason. Father freezes. What? The patient from 2011. Brooke meets his gaze steadily. The one whose death you blamed on equipment failure. Except it wasn't the equipment, was it? It was you, trying to cover up a mistake that would have cost you everything. You knew, Mother whispers. I found the real records. Brooke's hands shake slightly. The ones you kept to blackmail the manufacturer. That's when I realized you never protected me because you loved me. You did it because you needed someone under your control. Police officers enter the ballroom, real ones this time. Father sees them and shoves me aside, making a break for the exit. He doesn't make it 3 steps before Daniel, my unexpected ally, trips him. Father sprawls across the marble floor as handcuffs click into place. Mark Miller. The detective reads his rights while Mother screams and fights her own arrest. You're charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud. The list continues, but I'm not listening. I'm watching my parents' perfect world crumble, their masks finally shattered beyond repair. Brooke touches my arm. You okay? No. I watch Mother being led away, still shrieking about ungrateful children. But I will be. Eden, Father calls out as they reach the door. You'll regret this. Everything we built was built on lies. I meet his eyes one last time. Goodbye, Father. Later, as reporters swarm and police gather evidence, Brooke and I sit in the empty ballroom. What happens now? She asks. Ryan comes home. The clinic gets new management. Our parents face justice. I study my sister's profile, seeing both the girl she was and the woman she's becoming. And we learn who we are without their shadows over us. Together. I take her hand, feeling decades of manipulation and rivalry dissolve. But first, I need to go home to my daughter. We walk out of the clinic for the last time, leaving behind the wreckage of our parents' empire. Their perfect family fantasy lies in ruins, but something real and honest might grow from the ashes. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying everything. Sometimes it's about clearing the ground so truth can finally take root. The courtroom empties slowly after the verdict. 25 years for father, 18 for mother. Justice served in cold, precise numbers. I remain seated watching them being led away, neither looking back at the daughters they destroyed and rebuilt. Brooke touches my shoulder. Ready? Almost. I gather my things, fingers brushing the locket mother always wore. Now evidence of her crimes, the hidden compartment containing proof of bribes and threats. Outside, reporters wait with hungry cameras. Ryan shields Lily from their questions while Daniel handles the press statement. My daughter's small hand finds mine, anchoring me to what matters most. Aunt Brooke says we're moving to the clinic house, Lily says as we walk to the car. The big one with the garden? Yes. I exchange glances with my sister. The irony doesn't escape us. The family estate, purchased with tainted money, now transformed into a recovery center for victims of medical malpractice. But first, there's somewhere we need to go. We drive to Sarah's grave, where fresh flowers already rest against the headstone. A note from her daughter reads, "Justice for Mom." I keep thinking, Brooke says quietly, about all the moments we could have chosen differently, all the times we could have helped each other instead of becoming their weapons. I finish. She nods. Lily places her own flower, a dandelion picked from a crack in the sidewalk. Simple, pure, everything our childhood wasn't. Back home, I find Ryan in our study, reviewing patient files from the clinic. The board approved the restructuring, he says. We can start accepting new cases next month. And the trust fund? Set up for the victims' families. He pulls me close. You did it, Eden. You broke the cycle. But victory tastes different than I imagined. In my desk drawer, unopened, sits a letter from Mother, delivered by her lawyer after sentencing. Beside it, Father's signet ring, returned by the evidence clerk. What troubles you? Ryan asks, noticing my hesitation. I thought revenge would feel like winning. I sink into a chair. Instead, it feels like carrying their ghosts. A noise from the hallway draws our attention. Brooke stands there, Daniel behind her, both looking uncertain. The contractor found something in Father's office wall, Daniel says. Hidden compartment. You should see this. The manila envelope he hands me contains photographs, dozens of them. Me and Brooke as children, caught in rare moments of sisterly affection, playing in the garden, sharing secrets, laughing. He kept them, Brooke whispers. All this time he kept proof that we were once real, I finish, before they made us into their perfect lies. The last photo shows us at my 10th birthday, before everything changed, before competition and manipulation poisoned our bond. Two sisters, arms linked, facing the world together. Eden, Lily calls from downstairs. Aunt Brooke, the ice cream's melting. We share a look, my sister and I, understanding passing between us without words. We can't reclaim those innocent girls in the photographs, but maybe we can honor them by protecting the next generation from similar scars. Coming, sweetheart, I call back, tucking the photos away. Not hidden this time, but preserved. A reminder of what was lost and what might still be saved. In the kitchen, Lily orchestrates an elaborate ice cream sundae assembly line, directing Daniel with the serious authority of a 7-year-old dessert expert. Ryan documents the chaos on his phone, while Brooke, accidentally on purpose, gets chocolate sauce on her designer blouse. This is my victory, I realize. Not the courtroom triumph or the public vindication, but this, a family built on choice rather than obligation. Love freely given instead of weaponized. Mother's unopened letter can wait. Father's ring will gather dust. Their power over us died not with exposure or imprisonment, but in this moment, watching my daughter teach my sister how to make the perfect sundae, everyone laughing as whipped cream goes everywhere. Mom, Lily waves me over. You're missing everything. I join them, accepting the sticky spoon my daughter offers. The past will always echo, but its power fades with each genuine smile, each chosen connection, each moment we decide to be more than our scars. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply living well, surrounded by the love our parents never understood how to give.
A wife who does not bear a son is useless. My husband and in-laws forced me into a divorce, saying even being a woman had no value. Having my newborn daughter taken away, I had no choice but to comply with their demands. When I agreed to the divorce, my daughter and I were immediately thrown out of the house. Years later, having barely survived, my ex-husband appeared before me. What, you're still alive? I bet you're groveling at your poor parents' home, living a miserable life, huh? As usual, it seems all this man can do is put me down. I remarried a daughter from a big farming family, he boasted. My wife gave me a son, ensuring a secure future for our family. We are the winners, 100%. Aren't you jealous? He laughed vulgarly. I asked him, which big farm family? He arrogantly shared the name and location of the farm, using his family as an example, telling me to climb up to their level if I could. Hearing the name and location of the farm, I remembered something. Oh, that farm? Didn't you know? Actually, that farm's land is. After I revealed the truth, my ex-husband called me a delusional attention seeker. Pathetic, a woman over 30, he ranted. Little did he know, a shocking fate awaited him and my former in-laws for discarding me like garbage. I am a married woman in my 30s. As the eldest of 3 sisters, I lived at home until I graduated from high school. I moved out to attend college for the convenience of commuting. After college, I started working and haven't returned home. In my mid-20s, through a friend's introduction, I met and married my husband. I told my parents about the man I wanted to marry, and we met. But my parents opposed our marriage. On the other hand, my husband also had reservations about my parents. He believed that as long as the parties involved agreed, there was no problem with getting married. So I went through with the marriage without reconciling with my parents or sisters. Since then, I have not been in contact with them. My poor parents and relatives, glad I don't have to deal with them. My ex-husband remarked. You must be happy to have cut ties with your meddlesome parents too, right? On the day I introduced my husband to my parents, my father arranged for us to meet in a private room at a traditional restaurant. My mother cherishes a handbag gifted by my father, carefully maintaining it and always carrying it for special occasions. It seems to be a sort of lucky charm for her. Before our meeting, she had even sent it off for repairs. However, my husband whispered to me that it looked poor. That's an ugly bag. Its design is old-fashioned and reeks of the old era. I think it's more stylish to cherish and maintain what you love rather than being swayed by trends and discarding things after short use. However, my husband believed it was more important to follow the trends of the times. Due to this, I was glad to have lost contact with my parents and relatives. A sentiment my husband often expressed in the early days of our marriage. Shortly after our marriage, my husband moved into the apartment where I lived, starting our married life. However, within 6 months, we had to move in with his parents. My husband said it was important to save money for raising children, and I agreed. I got along well with my mother-in-law. so I thought living with my husband's family wouldn't be a problem. My husband's family has been employed by companies for generations, including his father and grandfather. His grandfather chose a public servant career, believing it to be the most stable. My father-in-law, unable to become a public servant, worked for a private company. My husband also worked for a company, albeit one less prestigious than where his father worked. The household income was lower than the average in the U.S., relying heavily on my father-in-law's salary, who was still working. Despite this, my in-laws strongly desired a male heir. A wife only proves her worth by giving birth to an heir for her in-laws. Make sure the first grandchild is a boy. Thinking how outdated it was to require a male child as an heir. I felt strongly about this as I am a sister myself, believing in male superiority and that women are useless without a son. I had a bad feeling about my mother-in-law's views. Still, for almost a year into our marriage, my husband and I were drifting, relying on luck because I was still working. I thought if I could get pregnant by 30, that would be fine. But my mother-in-law thought differently. When are you planning to end your honeymoon phase? It's common sense to have children in your 20s. Who knows what disabilities a child born from an older mother could have? She claimed my working was preventing my husband from fully committing to starting a family. Then, without my knowledge, she submitted my resignation. Of course, I was shocked when my boss told me that my mother-in-law had submitted my resignation. But my boss quickly agreed, saying, "If you want children, it can't be helped." My boss believed that the greatest happiness and duty of a woman is to get married and raise children. He frequently made statements that could cause serious issues if heard by the concerned parties, such as unmarried women devoted to their careers lacking charm. Working under such a boss, I'd likely face pressure about when I was having children or to take early maternity leave because it's nice women can work just until they're ready to sit at home. Indeed, someone had already resigned due to his remarks. Despite my discomfort, I resigned to avoid conflict with my mother-in-law. She then demanded I take my basal body temperature and time my ovulation to ensure pregnancy. My efforts didn't align with her schemes. Are you sure you're doing your part? You're not using birth control, are you? My mother-in-law started to suspect that I didn't want to get pregnant and was intentionally avoiding it. I do want children. However, I do not insist on having a son as she does. Then, my father-in-law, who had been quiet until now, suggested that the problem might be with me. He mentioned he had heard that issues with not getting pregnant usually lie with the woman, and he urged me to get tested immediately. The results showed there was nothing wrong with my health. I suspected the problem might lie with my husband, but my father-in-law adamantly defended him, insisting a man could not be the issue, citing outdated beliefs that men have upheld America. I was made out to be the useless one, the bad actor in this. My family has always had sons born first. The wives who married into our family were all capable. It's a shame my son ended up with a mismatched wife. We went to a church known for blessings of fertility, where we prayed and participated in purification rituals. We bought charms and desperately hoped for a sign of pregnancy, but there was none. My in-laws meant well, but to me, it was nothing but pressure. I asked my husband to let nature take its course and give it more time, but he wouldn't listen. 2 years of marriage and no child? It's a disgrace, almost as if my husband is infertile, they despaired. Instead of understanding, he pressured me even more, telling me to try harder for his sake. As there were no signs of pregnancy, our relationship began to deteriorate. He started coming home late, and every weekend he returned drunk, reducing our attempts to conceive. Honestly, I was relieved. being physically intimate with my husband out of obligation on weekends and ovulation days was exhausting. His late returns also meant less blaming from my in-laws, which calmed my mind. One day, my husband came home in a good mood after a long time and initiated intimacy. Weeks after our rare encounter, feeling unwell, I visited a doctor and discovered I was finally pregnant. I returned to my in-laws' house, light-footed with the news. It was a pregnancy at the edge of my 20s, after 4 years of marriage. With the pregnancy confirmed, my mother-in-law's attitude changed drastically. She became incredibly kind, and my household chores were significantly reduced. It was a pampered and careful 9 months. When it was time to find out the baby's sex, my in-laws hadn't asked me to check. So I looked forward to the surprise at birth. They believed I would have a boy based on my strong features. However, when the time came, I gave birth to a girl. My in-laws had opposed having my husband in the delivery room, believing men shouldn't attend births, so his presence was not there. I wished he could have been by my side, but faced with his parents' opposition, he seemed almost relieved. The meticulous care from my mother-in-law during pregnancy meant I suffered less from pregnancy symptoms than expected. As my belly grew, walking and shopping alone became difficult, and I asked my husband to drive me, which he did, but he never helped carry the groceries. It seemed as if he thought his duty ended with planting the seed. I sensed that raising our child would be a challenging endeavor. And so, my husband and in-laws waited outside the delivery room, anxious for the news. The birth was not only delayed but also difficult, and I felt very vulnerable. I worried I might not hear my baby's cry, but when I did, the baby's sex didn't matter anymore. "Thank you for being born healthy," was all I could think. Yet, when the nurse announced, "It's a healthy baby girl," my in-laws exploded beside my exhausted self. I didn't want a granddaughter. Girls are just a burden. Eventually going to another man's house. A useless wife. Do you want to end our family line? Do you have a grudge against our family finances? Do you want to shame my son as the man who couldn't produce a successor? My ex-husband chimed in. Their noisy complaints filled my ears. Don't they understand childbirth is a life-risking effort? I thought, too tired to respond. All I wanted was to be left to sleep. Yet, my father-in-law claimed that because I came from a family of 3 sisters, I was destined to only produce girls. He accused me of deceiving them with my female-only lineage. From now on, don't think of yourself as a wife. Work like a servant, you don't need maternity leave, he said as he dragged me out of bed. Stopped by a nurse who heard the commotion, he threw out a parting shot. "You only get today to rest," and left the room. My mother-in-law and husband followed him out. Despite the impossibility of discharging the day after birth, when I was finally allowed to leave the hospital and return to my in-laws' house, my belongings had been removed from my room. "A servant doesn't need a room, just curl up in a corner," my father-in-law declared. I rented a storage unit for my belongings, hoping that by doing housework and raising my child flawlessly, my in-laws would eventually understand. Staying in a corner of the room didn't bother me, but it was difficult with a newborn daughter. I begged my in-laws to at least let her sleep inside the room. They agreed to lend the space by the hour. I had some savings from my single years, so I decided to pay for the room time. However, they demanded additional fees for the baby's crying and the inconvenience of disposable diapers. My daughter often cried at the sound of my in-laws shouting, and they grew increasingly irritable, calling her charmless. I became unsure how to reconcile. Without anyone to consult and rarely leaving the house due to housework and childcare, I felt isolated. Then, one day, my husband's affair came to light, orchestrated by my in-laws. Unusually, my mother-in-law suggested that my daughter and I should go for a walk in the park. If I had been calm, I might have suspected something was amiss. However, worn out as I was, I took her suggestion and relaxed in the park, eager for a change of scenery. While we were out, my mother-in-law called, claiming an emergency with my husband, and asked us to return. When I arrived, I found him laughing with an unknown woman and my in-laws eating luxury meal. You couldn't get pregnant easily. So I introduced him to a girl who seems like she could pop out kids easily. She had casually mentioned my struggles to a friend, leading to a conversation about setting up my husband with her daughter. They hit it off, and my in-laws intensified their criticism and nitpicking to drive me out, especially after finding out I was pregnant. But they continued the relationship, thinking if a son was born, all would be well. If not, they had a backup plan. The child born is a girl and useless. Since I had not given birth to a son, I was deemed useless. And they concocted various schemes to drive me out. Instead of running away, I endured and persevered. So reluctantly, they forced a divorce with his affair partner present. I want to divorce you. Your presence worsens my parents' mood, and it makes our home tense, doesn't it? As I stood dumbfounded by his selfish words, my father-in-law snatched my daughter from my arms. He threatened to throw her into the yard if I didn't sign the divorce papers, making a throwing gesture. I screamed with all my might to stop him. I think it was the loudest I've ever yelled in my life. With no other options, I silently signed the divorce papers. My ex-husband tossed a thin bank envelope at my feet, calling it severance pay. As I picked them up, my husband and in-laws sneered and laughed mockingly. I endured the humiliation and bitterness. I bit my lips so hard that I tasted blood in my mouth. My husband's affair partner seemed unfazed by the situation, even appearing smug. With nowhere to go, I had no choice but to turn to my estranged parents. I could have managed alone, but with a newborn daughter, it felt daunting to go on by myself. I had almost nothing to start with. They kept finding reasons to charge me extra fees. My husband refused to contribute financially to our daughter's expenses, telling me to figure it out myself if I wanted to raise her. I contacted my parents, asking if they could at least take in my daughter. When they asked where I was, they told me not to move from there. Shortly after, my father arrived, driving with my mother in the passenger seat. My father drove, my mother sat next to him, and my daughter and I were in the back seat. I began to share everything that had happened since my marriage. While I spoke, my parents listened silently without uttering a single word. The last thing I said was an apology for not even telling them about my daughter's birth, asking if they could at least take her in. Then my mother said, "It must have been hard, you did well." My father bluntly told me to come back home. When we returned home, my sisters were still there. And my old room was just as I had left it after high school graduation. My father told me I could use that room as I liked. From the room preserved as I had left it, I deeply felt my parents' love. The floors and shelves were clean, and the blanket smelled faintly of the sun. My mother had been maintaining it for 12 years, ensuring I wouldn't be inconvenienced whenever I returned. I sensed my father's deep affection in his few words. Reflecting on it, I realized that my father, who had never opposed my decisions, had clearly said, "Not that man," when it came to my marriage. I asked why he had opposed it. I thought they might have conducted a background check without my knowledge. But that wasn't it. My mother said she didn't like speaking ill of others, but if she had to say something, it was because she thought he only looked at the surface. I remembered that during our initial meeting, my ex-husband had been overly concerned about my mother's handbag. He said those with good bags are wealthy, and those who care for old bags for a long time are poor. I regretted not listening to my parents' reasons for opposition and rashly cutting ties to marry. I apologized to my parents for acting selfishly and making a poor decision. 3 years have passed since I divorced and returned to my parents' home. Even though my parents welcomed me back, I cannot rely on them forever as a mother. These 3 years have been the most intense of my life. One day, I ran into my ex-husband, who was doing agricultural work locally. He looked very different from the man I knew. His skin was sunburnt and rough from lack of care. The man I had married had thought wearing nice things was a status symbol and, regardless of his personality, always took care in his appearance. Seeing him in ragged, dirty work clothes seemed almost surreal. He explained that his mother-in-law had instructed him to help out at his affair partner's family farm. My wife's family owns a large farm. She gave birth to a boy first, securing our family's future. I thought he would stop at bragging, but he then insulted me. "You went back to your poor family, right? A divorced woman in her 30s with a kid, and your unmarried sisters must be quite the burden. Did you have to grovel to your miserly parents? How did that feel?" he asked rudely. It's fine if he speaks ill of me. Getting upset over such a despicable man's words would be a waste of time and effort. But I couldn't forgive him for speaking ill of my parents and sisters, who had warmly welcomed me back. I knew of the farm he mentioned. I asked him, "Which farm is that?" He claimed it was the largest landholder in the area. Unknown to him, my family had historically leased land for profit. Going back through my father's family tree, it seems we had an influential ancestor who managed this area. This ancestor lived frugally, aligned with the villagers. And my father's family had continued to live modestly according to that tradition. That's why our family home is just a normal, old 2-story house. Since returning home, I've been helping my father with his business while raising my daughter. I discovered that the parents of my ex-husband's affair partner were involved in my father's business. I told my ex-husband that the farm was actually leasing land from my parents. He exploded, accusing me of lying. "Your mother has only an old bag, and her clothes at the greeting were outdated. You must be poor if you can't afford new clothes for your daughter's departure," he ranted in panic. I told him I wasn't idle enough to come to the agricultural cooperative just to lie. I was there for my family's rental business. Our family owns not just farmland but also apartments and buildings. A well-known company's branch is in one of our buildings. A real estate magnate known to anyone living in the area for a long time. Initially, my younger sister was set to take over the family business when I got married. But during the 4 years I was married, she found her own path. That's when I returned. Having always been interested in my father's work, I decided to take over after him. My middle sister is now pursuing her dreams, working hard after moving out. As I explained this, my ex-husband still didn't believe me, calling it lies and fantasies. "If you're going to say that, how about this? I remarried an old friend," I told him. When I showed my wedding ring, my ex-husband's face contorted. "I don't mean to brag, but my current husband treats my daughter from a previous relationship as his own. The apartment on the land my father let me manage on a trial basis became popular quickly. After my husband and I added our ideas. It was an old apartment with many vacancies and considered out of date. But now it's popular among young couples and considered ideal for raising children." My ex-husband, unaware of such a change, confronted me aggressively. "You tricked me. Acting all poor. No, you're the one who assumed I was poor. Let go." I tried to push his hand away, but he only gripped harder. He even pulled my hair. which prompted someone who noticed the commotion to call for security. A few men tried to help me, but my ex-husband resisted fiercely, even biting them. A burly security guard appeared, and my ex-husband hesitated for a moment, which was enough for him to be subdued and taken outside. Later, my ex-husband contacted me. Thinking it was an apology for his previous behavior, I answered the phone. But he was actually begging for money. He explained that his mother-in-law had fallen victim to a termite scam and had been swindled out of a significant amount of money, causing financial hardship. They tried to borrow money using their family home as collateral, but his father-in-law had retired early after passing on the family leadership to him because a successor was born. It seems he was also swindled out of his retirement funds. My ex-husband couldn't cover the expenses for 2 households on his income alone, and, too proud to admit his financial incapacity, he embezzled company funds and got caught, resulting in his dismissal. Not only was he fired, but he was also required to repay the full amount he embezzled. The parents of his affair partner ended up covering for him. My ex-husband and his parents lost everything and were working off their debt at the affair partner's family farm. Even though they worked, their wages were seized to repay the debt, leaving them physically and mentally devastated. He said it was a living hell, with their marrow being sucked dry. He begged my parents to pay off his remaining debt. Please save us from this hardship. You're our only hope. Which right do you have to say that? I clenched my fist tightly to control my anger. My nails dug into my palm, causing pain. It felt like the pain in my hand was keeping my rage in check. Even when I begged for help, you cared only about your public image and didn't help. I don't think there's any value in helping people who judge others only by their appearances. I firmly declined his request, thinking it was a good opportunity for him to understand what it feels like to be oppressed. I also told him not to contact me anymore, since I didn't expect him to take it seriously. I blocked his number on my smartphone and home phone. Then he started lurking around the agricultural cooperative and even ambushed me. Security personnel, recognizing him, chased him away. But since he vaguely remembered where my parents' house was, he also lay in wait there. He hid when my parents or husband were around but confronted me alone, threatening to keep following me until I gave him money. This behavior eventually became known at the cooperative, and my parents heard about it, suggesting I file a police report. However, I preferred to avoid involving the police, as anyone in business might understand. I wanted to settle things amicably, without holding any grudges, even against those at fault. It may be true that I'm looked down upon because of that. However, as a person, I would prefer to live without conflict. Then, my parents lodged a complaint with the parents of the daughter from the farming family who had taken my ex-husband from me. My parents told them, "Your son-in-law is our daughter's ex-husband, and your daughter took him from our daughter. Now he is begging our daughter for money. His lurking and following her around is causing a great nuisance. I hear that bad rumors about him have spread around the agricultural cooperative. Please take responsibility and handle this," they said quite sternly. Upon learning the truth, the affair partner's parents apologized, admitting they had done something terrible without knowing I was the daughter of a landowner. Later, the daughter who had been the affair partner came to apologize to me, accompanied by her parents. She expressed shame for having believed, and sided with my ex-mother-in-law's suggestions to drive me out. I told her that words are easy to say, so if she truly felt sorry, I asked her to strictly discipline my ex-husband and ensure he does not contact me unless it's work-related. I also asked her to ensure that he does not involve himself with me outside of work, although we're currently connected through our parents. I knew we would eventually have to interact in our generation. I didn't want a casual relationship. I wanted a clear separation, strictly for work purposes. Later, I heard that the affair partner's parents severely reprimanded my ex-husband, even confiscating his room, similar to what he had done to me. He was now living crammed with his parents-in-law in a corner of a tool shed. Eventually, my ex-mother-in-law was ostracized by the parents of the affair partner, after being caught secretly harvesting and selling crops. She blamed their hunger on them, which led to further discord. Unwilling to forgive the debt, they decided to loan her out to a known, quirky old couple who hated dishonesty. The old couple re-educated her quite harshly after learning what she had done. Thanks to that, I heard she had become as thin as a skeleton. When I go to the cooperative, I hear various rumors, but eventually, I stopped hearing about my ex-husband and his family. It seems the parents of the affair partner renewed their lease on the land, so they likely continued farming. The fact that I no longer hear rumors about my ex-husband suggests they are keeping their promise to supervise him strictly. The following year after this ordeal, I became pregnant with my current husband. We had a son, but I vowed not to raise him with the expectation that a son must take over everything. My husband shows equal love and care to both our daughter and son. My daughter seems to have matured a bit, taking on the role of an older sister. With support from my parents, my son is growing up in a nurturing environment. My middle sister is still pursuing her dreams and seldom visits home. My youngest sister recently met someone nice and started talking about marriage. My parents are still far from retirement, continuing to work diligently. We live fully in the present, feeling that our happiness depends on our efforts. I want to live without forgetting this feeling. I'm going on a business trip now. Don't contact me at all while I'm away. I won't contact you either. Okay, I understand. That day, my husband left the house, emphasizing the word business trip excessively. But I knew that was not a business trip but a cheating trip. I thought, I can't forgive how he has treated me so far. I hope I can get more effective revenge on my husband. I was thinking about what to do next. But then I received a call from my husband's phone number that day. I thought, even though he emphasized business trip so much and insisted we shouldn't contact each other, what does he mean by this? Wondering, I answered the phone, and your husband suddenly collapsed while eating and has been taken by ambulance. Please come here. The voice on the phone was not my husband's, but a young woman's. My husband doesn't contact me during work. Are you sure you have the right person? I said just that and hung up the phone. After that, I received numerous calls but ignored them all and turned off my smartphone. Then, immediately, I canceled my cell phone service and changed my number. That was the beginning of my revenge against my husband. I am Rachel Brown, a 45-year-old cook. I currently work at a school meal service center. My husband, Matt, and I have a daughter, Katie, who is a university student. One day, I was talking on the phone with her. Katie, have you gotten used to university life? Are you having any trouble living alone? No problem. I've gotten used to both things. Living alone is really comfortable once you get used to it. Just make sure you don't get too carried away though. Since it's within commuting distance, you can always come home, you know.
Yeah.
I understand. It's nice to come home, but I'll come when Dad isn't there. When Dad isn't there. I understand. Although the university is within commuting distance from home, she has chosen to live alone in a student dorm. My husband, a company executive partly because of his age, said something that revealed why she avoids him. I'm home. Oh, it's boring without Katie here just after getting back from work. Katie is already a university student and an adult. You can't expect things to be the same as before. You have to let her be free. But just being with you. I feel the same way. The time spent alone with my husband has increased now that our daughter has moved out. But it has been painful for me. Because my husband is blatantly cold to me. He started being cold around the time our daughter began preparing for university. Which is also when she started avoiding him. Katie, are you studying again? Don't just study all the time, how about going out with me once in a while? I'm studying because I really want to get into a certain university. Please don't bother me. Matt, I understand Katie needs a break. But she's working hard, so let her be. Rachel, shut up. Hey, Katie, do you have enough allowance? You don't have to go to university if it's too hard. Dad, be quiet. You're really bothering me. I'm going to move out and live alone when I go to university. This is why she started living alone, to escape from the excessive physical affection from her father. Oh, why did Rachel have to become an old woman? It's a shame there are no young and cute girls in the house anymore. Old woman? I'm 45 and you're 50, Matt. I'm 5 years younger than you. What are you talking about? Don't equate a man's 50 years with a woman's 45 years. Huh? What kind of logic is that? As I age, it bothers me how he looks down on me as an old woman and speaks coldly. But what concerns me the most is the cooking. My husband has allergies to seafood and shellfish, so I have to be careful with his meals. I thought I was providing well-balanced meals considering this. Rachel. Meatloaf again? It's getting boring with the same menu every time. It can't be helped that meat and vegetables are the main components. I always try to be creative with the cooking. Yeah. You're the cook after all. Look at me, I'm amazing because I cook. I don't need that. What? You didn't need to say that. Thinking about allergies while cooking is not only part of my job as a cook, but also my duty as a wife and a mother at home. It's important to prioritize the eater's health. Yet, why does he trample on my feelings like this? I just couldn't believe it. Oh, right. I have a plan to take a junior colleague out for dinner tomorrow. Lucky me, I won't have to eat your cooking. Oh, is that so? It's good to eat out. But remember your allergies and don't trouble the restaurant or your colleagues. Stop nagging. I know that without you telling me. Since he became a manager, he often goes out to eat with his boss and colleagues. And stays out late claiming to be busy with work. Now that our daughter is living alone, when my husband is not home, I often find myself alone. I thought, well, it's not just Katie, but now I really enjoy the time alone too. As I was spending my days like this, one day, I received a call from my daughter, but she sounded strange. Mom, please calm down and listen to me. What's the rush all of a sudden? Katie, calm down, will you? It's rare for her to call me since I'm usually the one reaching out. But she sounded hurried in her way of speaking, so I listened to her while trying to calm her down. Actually, one of my seniors at university works at a nightclub. Oh, it's not strange for someone of your age to work at a nightclub. But what about it? It's not uncommon for university students to work at nightclubs. Why is she so panicked? I was curious as I listened to her continue. I wasn't surprised that she worked there. But I was shocked to hear that Dad has been spending a lot of money there. What? Could it be a mistake, or perhaps it's just a business obligation? She mentioned that Mr. Brown, a regular customer at the club, proudly talked about his daughter and that she shares my exact name. I still couldn't believe what I was hearing. It might be someone else's daughter who shares the same name as mine. I hoped that was the case, but my wish was abruptly shattered the next moment. I couldn't believe it either, so I asked her to take a photo of the man, and it really was Dad. What? What was Dad like then? Another senior works there too, and it seems like they have a close relationship. He's even bought her an apartment. What does that mean? Could it possibly be?
Yeah.
Probably just what you're thinking, Mom. I don't mean to criticize my husband for going to a nightclub. The issue is the way he spends. If he were spending money while considering our family's finances, there wouldn't be a problem. But from what my daughter tells me, that's not the case. Both my daughter and I thought so. I thought, what is Matt really thinking? While I trembled with anger upon hearing this from my daughter, my husband himself provoked my anger even further. Hey, I'm going on a business trip next month, just so you know. A business trip? That's rare. Does getting a position change one's work and behavior, I wonder? You know that without saying. What a hassle. Well, fine. I'm going to take a shower now. I thought, is it really a business trip? Having heard from my daughter, I couldn't help but doubt his words. Then, conveniently, he left his smartphone in front of me as he moved to the bathroom. So I seized the chance and checked it. Looking forward to our trip next month. Make sure your wife doesn't find out. Of course, I said it's a business trip, so it's no problem. I confirmed such an exchange on Messenger, with the contact name, Tiffany Hansen. Having heard from my daughter about his fondness for a worker at a nightclub, I was convinced that it was not a business trip but a cheating trip. What is he really thinking? It was unbelievable how he could lie so calmly, and once again, I trembled with anger towards my husband. I thought, if that's what he intends, then And so, I decided to gather evidence of his infidelity. The next day, I contacted my daughter to tell her about this. It seems like what you said is true. I hate to ask you this, but can you help me? Of course, Mom. If that's true, I can't forgive Dad either. I could tell from her tone that she too was trembling with anger. A month passed as we began investigating my husband's infidelity with my daughter's help. On the day he said he was leaving for his business trip. Well, I'm off on my business trip. He was about to leave the house, unaware that I knew about his affair. Hey, where are you going on this business trip? Wanting to throw a barb at him as he tried to leave nonchalantly, I asked him that. What? Why do you ask? It's to the sunset and in the countryside. What a hassle. Sorry, just asking because of the allergy thing. Stop nagging me. Hey, don't contact me while I'm on this trip. I won't contact you either. With those grumpy words, he left the house quickly. I was considering my next move, but that night, surprisingly, a call came from my husband's phone number. I thought, why is he calling when he told me not to contact him? I wondered and tilted my head, but I answered the phone anyway. Hello? Is this Mrs. Brown? Sorry, who is this? The voice on the other end of the phone was not my husband's, but a young woman's. I knew she was the mistress, but I pretended not to know and asked her instead. Matt collapsed suddenly while dining at Harmony Inn and is unconscious. He's been taken by ambulance, so please come here. She seemed reluctant to identify herself as the mistress, hurrying to tell only the necessary information without giving her name. I thought, Matt is unconscious. Could it possibly be? The cause of my husband's collapse was likely what I suspected. Since I had an inkling it would come to this, and especially remembering what he said before leaving. My husband, Matt, does not contact me during work. Are you sure you aren't calling the wrong person? I just told her that and hung up the phone. However, as the calls persisted annoyingly, I turned off my smartphone. I then replaced my smartphone and changed my phone number. 3 days later, my daughter contacted me, so I answered. "Oh, Mom, I just got a call from Tiffany. And she said Dad had regained consciousness and is recovering. So, she asked us to come to the hospital. Is that so? Thanks for letting me know." Well, I guess I have no choice but to go. Although I wasn't eager, I decided to go to the hospital since my daughter informed me. When I arrived at the hospital and entered my husband's room, he frowned the moment he saw me. "You finally showed up. Why didn't you come immediately after hearing I had collapsed? You heartless person." He raised his voice angrily, but I didn't care much about that. "Hey, instead of that, why did you end up unconscious in the first place?" "Well, that is..." He looked uncomfortable and was at a loss for words, but reluctantly began to explain why he collapsed. It was indeed as I had suspected. I asked him again why he was staying at the inn, but he still claimed it was a business trip and refused to tell the truth. That's strange, isn't it? You said you were staying at Sunset Inn. So I made sure to inform them about your shellfish and seafood allergies. Yet, you were actually at Harmony Inn. Huh, why would you do that? I don't think I mentioned Harmony Inn to you. When I questioned him, he looked startled. So I decided there was no need to hide what I knew any longer. Actually, I knew you were cheating. This was not a business trip but a trip with Tiffany Hansen, right? What? You knew? Yes, that's right. Now that it has come to this, I can't forgive you, Matt. Please, let's get divorced. I said this and thrust the divorce papers at him. Would this make him reflect a little? As I waited to see if he would apologize. What, you knew? Well, good. I was planning to divorce you anyway since you're getting old. It's actually lucky for me, saving me the trouble of going to the law office. What is that supposed to mean? Are you serious? Yes, I am serious. I feel refreshed thinking about leaving you. Now I can be with Tiffany. Now that you know, just get out of the hospital room. He spoke with a triumphant look. I thought, as if I would let it go just as you want, Matt. How can he be so smug? He would regret this later, not me. Thinking this, I left the hospital room utterly dismayed. A month later, I moved out of the house where I lived with my husband and started living in an apartment where my daughter was staying alone. My daughter had helped me a lot in investigating her father's affair, and her moving was part of that effort. Katie, thank you for moving out of the dorm. Although you were enjoying living alone. Don't worry about it. It's all Dad's fault, not yours. We had this conversation when deciding to move in together. I was truly grateful that she was on my side without showing any displeasure. We spent the first month peacefully without any incidents. But one day, we had a visitor at the apartment. When I answered the intercom. Hello. Oh? Who might you be? Standing in front of the door was a young woman not much older than my daughter. Well, I'm Tiffany Hansen. I was the one traveling with Matt. Oh, you're the one? But how did you find out about this place? Although I understood she was my husband's mistress, I was puzzled how she knew this location. It would be understandable if my daughter was still in the dorm. But now we live in a different apartment. I attend the same university as Katie. Knowing that, I found out about this place. I see. You went out of your way to find out. So, what do you need from me? As I asked her with a bit of disbelief, the mistress seemed panicked. Mrs. Brown, I'm sorry. Please help me. She suddenly apologized to me. What's the matter all of a sudden? What do you mean? You know about Matt collapsing at Harmony Inn, right? Yes, I know about that, but what's wrong? At that time, I didn't know why he had collapsed. I didn't realize it was because of an allergy. So I made a fuss claiming it was food poisoning from the inn's food. What have you done? It must have been hard once the truth came out at the inn. My suspicion was correct. The inn's reputation suffered because of their fuss about food poisoning. But the real cause was that Matt had failed to report his allergies. Because I didn't report the allergy, it led to anaphylaxis. And because we blamed the inn, they are now suing us for defamation and damages. Oh, is that so? But isn't that your own fault? I can only say it serves you right. Please don't say that. Please help me. I can't afford to pay the damages. Why should I help you? It was Matt and your affair, and moreover, it was his responsibility to report his allergy. That's… As I spoke firmly, the mistress stuttered and looked flustered. Anyway, asking me for help is completely out of place. Now that you understand, please leave immediately. Wait, please wait. I made it clear and tried to send her away. The mistress seemed to want to say something more, but I ignored her and closed the door. I was also investigating my husband's affair trip. It turned out he had filed a fake business trip with his company for this affair trip. When I found out about the affair trip, I had contacted his company in advance to ask for an investigation. And it seemed he had repeated the same behavior several times before. Later, my husband showed up in front of the apartment. Probably because the mistress knew about the apartment, my husband found out too. It really became a hassle. Hey, Rachel, you really did a number on me. Huh? Why are you making such a fuss all of a sudden? Stop playing dumb. You spilled the beans about the business trip to the company, didn't you? Because of you, I got fired. Oh, is that so? Well, that seems like a natural consequence. I had finally gotten a position, and now re-employment is tough at my age since I was fired. What does complaining to me accomplish? Despite working hard, he ruined his own career. I lost my job and can't find a new one. I guess I have no choice but to live off Tiffany now. Are you serious? Tiffany is about the same age as our daughter, Katie, isn't she? Isn't it embarrassing to be supported by a woman the same age as his daughter? It seemed he had thrown away his pride, satisfied with just being with a younger woman. However, no matter how desperately my husband discarded his pride, there seemed to be no gods ready to pick him up, only those ready to throw him away. The more he continued, the more evident it became. Oh, but Tiffany, of all things, told her parents the truth. Maybe things could have been managed if she had lied a bit. Maybe she thought it was better to be honest, so they would be more likely to help. It looks like it didn't work out well for you though. What I heard from my husband next was just as I had expected. The mistress had been disowned by her parents, and now, burdened with an unemployed husband, she had to quit university and work hard to earn a living. This is all your fault. Take responsibility and fix this. He was still shouting such things, but I ignored him, closed the door, called the police, and left the rest to them. Later, my divorce from my husband was finalized. I'm working hard as a cook while living with my daughter. Mom, how's work going? Well, it's tough at times, but I love cooking, so I'm enjoying it. I enjoyed my work and had good conversations with my daughter at home, living a fulfilling life. Then, as time passed and my daughter's university graduation approached, one day, she shared her future goals with me. Hey, Mom, I want to become a dietitian after I graduate from university. Oh, is that so? Is there a reason you chose that path? I wanted to work with food, like you did as a cook. I didn't realize you thought that way. It's different from being a cook and has its challenges, but I'm sure you'll be fine, Katie. I'm here to support you. Knowing she understood my work and had chosen her goal based on that made me deeply moved as a mother. As I told her, I believe she'll be fine, but she's still young. She'll surely gain various experiences from now on. I hope she doesn't have to struggle like me, doing her best happily. As a mother, I want to support her fully so that she can have such a life.
My name is Jenny. I'm 38 years old, and while I used to stay slim without any effort when I was younger, I've noticed a bit of a belly lately. Perhaps this is middle-aged spread. But I suppose it's better than being too skinny like I was in my youth. I keep telling myself this to put off dieting, planning to start next year rather than tomorrow. By next year, I'll probably say, diet? Maybe next year. Now, I'll talk about a time when not only my body but also my mind was finer. Or maybe not. I felt like my heart was covered in thick hair. Well, it's a nostalgic story from those times. I'd love for you to listen. This happened about 10 years ago. My husband Steve's father, my father-in-law, passed away suddenly. That event significantly changed my daily life. It's pitiful to leave my mom alone at home, so I've decided to let her live with us. What? It was our 4th year of marriage. I was speechless at his sudden suggestion. To tell the truth, I don't get along well with my mother-in-law. She adored Steve too much and seemed to have wanted to keep him all to herself without marrying him off. If it couldn't be helped, she would have been okay with him marrying his ex-girlfriend, who she really liked. Well, honestly, that might also be a lie. She probably just said that to spite me. You will never let him marry, will you? Said my father-in-law. I'll end up alone. Steve added, and somehow we got her to agree to our marriage. Then, my mother-in-law proposed living in a duplex house. I was firmly against it, but Steve was like, I'm fine either way. Since then, the clash between my no to duplex and her live in a duplex or give my son back dug a deep rift in our mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. My father-in-law used to stop her from going too far, but it seems the balance was lost with his death. Living together. You didn't even discuss this with me. Do I need to discuss having my parents live in a house that's in my name? I was speechless. Maybe he's right. But isn't it strange to decide without discussing it even when we're married? I was both annoyed and confused. However, no matter how many times I asked him to reconsider, Steve repeatedly insisted. It's already decided. Perhaps it would have been better to attach another house next to ours and live as a duplex. If I'm honest, I disliked both options, but at that time, I wished we could have at least discussed it more. Unfortunately, the very next day, my mother-in-law came to our house. When I saw her standing at the front door, the theme from Jaws played in my head, which would be a secret. I thought, oh no, from today on, I really have to live with this woman. Deeply disappointed, I led her to the living room, where she exclaimed, "Wow! The sense of interior is terrible. Why do you have such ugly sofas and cushions?" I braced myself for comments about dirtiness, but the interior design? I'm sorry, Steve chose that. Sorry, Mom. I chose it. Shall we go buy your sofa together? As we said that, my mother-in-law's expression changed completely. Oh, if it's just the sofas, that's a great choice. But the sofas and the cushions don't match, do they? Let's go buy some cushions. She smiled sweetly and intertwined her arm with Steve's like a girlfriend. Seeing this, I got goosebumps on my arms. He also smiled sheepishly and reciprocated. Seriously, no way. Steve has always tended not to argue with his mother. Maybe he's just bad at standing up to his parents. Thanks to her demand for family time. Steve would stay several nights at his parents' house during holidays like Easter and Christmas, while I hardly ever went there except for Christmas. Because of this, I didn't have to watch their interactions for long hours. However, witnessing Steve and mother-in-law like this made me think. Could he be a mama's boy? No, that can't be right. I tried desperately to dismiss my suspicions, but they turned into conviction from the first day of living together. I'm going out to buy cushions with Mom, so you prepare dinner. Mom, what would you like to eat? How about Chinese? Can you make chili shrimp, Jenny? Sure you can, Jenny. I'm counting on you for chili shrimp and other Chinese dishes. With that, the pair left, assigning me the dinner preparation. There was no shrimp in the fridge. I thought, does this mean I also have to go shopping? It's not strange for them to go shopping together, but there's something slightly irritating about it. She didn't move from another state. In fact, her house is just around the corner. She should know the stores around here well enough. Let her buy her own cushions, and you should help with the housework. I had to suppress the urge to punch the wall, and irritated, I went out shopping. After returning from the shopping, I prepared the Chinese cuisine my mother-in-law wanted, waiting for their return. But they didn't come back, even though it was already evening, after having left in the morning. Worried as you would think, I decided to contact him. Hey, where are you? Dinner's ready. What? Dinner? Oh, sorry, just eat there. What do you mean? I'm out eating Chinese food with Mom. It's been fun catching up with her, and I completely forgot about dinner at home. Sorry. Steve laughed as if he had made a simple oversight. Hearing his laughter, I felt a boiling frustration. After going out of my way to buy groceries and cook for 3, I thought, if you were going to eat out, I could have just made something simple for myself. Nevertheless, I didn't want to eat with her anyway, so I didn't feel left behind. Anyway, it's only natural to be upset when you are asked by someone to prepare a meal and then get abandoned. This rocky start made me wonder if I could really manage living with my mother-in-law in the future. My anxiety only grew over the following 2 weeks. The relationship with my mother-in-law, which I had hoped might improve, only deteriorated day by day. She would constantly criticize my way of doing housework and my lifestyle. Take a bath before cooking dinner, it's unhygienic. Don't store perishables in their original packaging in the fridge, transfer them to airtight containers to avoid odors. Don't use disposable wipes for cleaning. Just use a rag. While I could almost understand her nitpicking, her next demand was baffling. Don't go to bed before Steve. Wait at least an hour and a half after he does. What kind of rule is that? It seemed like she was taking her son's authority too far. While I wanted to suggest sharing household duties since we were living together, I held back because I wanted to get along with her. I really wanted to improve the tense atmosphere in our home, so I tried my best to follow my mother-in-law's instructions as much as possible. However, my efforts proved futile. For example, one day, she scolded me for keeping perishables in their original packaging in the fridge. I followed her instructions, but the following day she would likely scold me for transferring them into different containers, claiming the containers would now smell. Her instructions change daily, and what she tells me one day often becomes a completely different story the next. This seemed to be her way of harassing her daughter-in-law. It was incredibly petty, and her smirking after criticizing me was infuriating. Enduring such treatment from morning till night, even someone as tough as me reached their mental limit. Living together for just 2 weeks felt like more than 6 months. I tried discussing this with Steve in our bedroom, but he was hardly supportive. Around that time, he had been overly attached to his mother, even meeting her for dates after work. When was the last time he dated me? Thus, my requests for him to mediate between his mother and me were futile. Mom's cooking has always been delicious. If she says to mind the fridge odors, she's right. She's a respectable mother, so you should just listen to her. You're always complaining about Mom. You don't empathize with how she feels living alone with us at all. Mom is always right. Maybe we should have reconsidered this marriage since she was against it. His praises for her mother was just endless. While I was constantly belittled despite doing all the housework, her inconsistent advice, which she proudly upheld, was increasingly validated. Eventually, I realized it was futile to argue and started thinking about how to endure each day without letting them get to me. It was easier to just nod along and ignore them. Just as I thought I had figured out how to cope, another incident occurred. Are we having fritters today? Oh. Why did you include eggplants, which I hate? Are you trying to upset me? Seeing the dinner dishes, she shouted. Sorry, I didn't know. But Steve likes it. I genuinely didn't know it was her disliked food, so I felt truly sorry. However, it seems it was a mistake to say. But Steve likes it. At that time. That's obvious. Do you think I don't know my own son's tastes? She yelled, infuriated. No, that's not what I meant. Please, don't pull on my apron, it's dangerous. As she yanked on my apron and even tried to pull my hair, she screamed. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. You think you can just show up and take over? I am his one and only mother. Just as she pulled my apron sharply, the tie around my waist came undone, and I lost my balance, causing a pot of hot oil to tip over. Oh my gosh. I promptly pushed her away and dodged the oil, preventing a major accident. However, I couldn't avoid burning the tips of my left toes. Fortunately, it was only a minor burn from the oil that had cooled slightly after spilling. Before I could even cool my fingertips, I endured the pain and asked my mother-in-law. Are you okay? She angrily shouted back. That was dangerous. It's all because you were flailing about. I could have been burned because of you. What a frightening daughter-in-law you are. What? You were pulling on my apron. I was just trying to stop you. Didn't I say it was dangerous? Are you talking back now? After putting me in danger and not even apologizing. You really have no manners. I'd like to see who raised you. I swallowed the words I wanted to say back. You saw my parents at the wedding, didn't you? I had pushed her away to prevent her from getting burned, yet I was the one who got injured. And still, why must I be scolded like this? With all due respect, Mother. Just as I was about to retort, Steve came in from the front door. Really, if you're home, open the door. It's awful not to even unlock it when I ring the bell. Before him was the hot pot, the scattered oil, and a little distance away, his wife in disarray and his mother in a fury. Even my foolish husband could see something was terribly wrong, his face had turned pale. What happened here? He asked, to which his mother clung to him, crying. Steve. Help me. What's going on, Mom? Jenny suddenly started raging while she was cooking. I tried to stop her because it was dangerous, and she pushed me. What? I almost got severely burned by the oil. It was terrifying. I know you might be upset, Jenny, but please, stop bullying an old woman like me. After saying that, the mother-in-law looked at me and smirked. Steve, believing I was at fault without question, glared at me. I had been framed. You've been acting too high and mighty towards Mom lately. What? I was stunned by his sudden accusation. Far from acting superior, I had mostly been on the receiving end of orders. Most of the time, it was too tiring to argue, so I just agreed with whatever was said. It was absurd for him to say such things based only on what he heard from his mother, especially since he never witnessed how she constantly berated me. Mom is just trying to teach you how to be a good wife. Just follow her lead. After shouting at me, Steve looked satisfied with himself and the mother-in-law applauded him. No one bothered to ask if I was hurt. I was furious. Ignoring him and mother-in-law, I cooled my foot. While my temper did not subside and I remained irritated, fortunately, the burn cooled down. Every time they saw me, they accused me of trying to hurt the mother-in-law, calling me a terrible wife. But I ignored all their comments. Let them say what they want. They'll be the ones to regret it in the end. The next day, I called my father and explained everything that had happened. That house is dangerous, come back home. He said that, but I asked for his help with something. Although he wanted to bring me home immediately, he became enthusiastic about helping once he heard my plan. That same day, my father came to the house where I lived with Steve and mother-in-law. My mom and dad are close to divorcing because they've been arguing, and it's sad to leave him in such a tense home, so I've decided to let my dad live with us from today. When I announced this, both Steve and mother-in-law were confused and started to object. What? Don't joke, Jenny. You can't just decide that without consulting me. That's too selfish, Jenny. How dare they say that? That's rich coming from you. You decided to live with your mother without consulting me at all. As I glared at him, Steve retorted. That's because this house is in my name. Yes, the house is in your name. But I had forgotten, but I used my savings from before we were married as the down payment for this house. Thinking about it, isn't this marital property? When Steve suddenly announced he would be living with his mother, I was too embarrassed to argue back then because I didn't know better. However, if a house is in Steve's name and the wife has contributed to the payments, it's considered marital property. Additionally, there was a time when I was paying the living expenses from my part-time job earnings. Therefore, there's no reason for him to do whatever he wants with his house because it's also mine. My comment left Steve speechless. The mother-in-law, flustered, looked back and forth between us. By the way, Steve, did you wash those clothes yourself? Caught off guard by my father's sudden comment, Steve looked bewildered. No. Jenny does the housework. At this, my father raised an eyebrow. Jenny's job? Don't you help out at all? This is your house, isn't it? Don't you do any housework in your own house? Well, the house belongs to Jenny too. You just boasted that it was your house. Can't you take care of your own home? Please stop. Steve is pitiful. As my father and Steve argued, the mother-in-law intervened. My father, knowing the situation from my stories, stared sternly at her. Oh. And who made that breakfast this morning? Jenny did. Do you have a problem with that? Of course, I do. You just eat the food she makes and wear the clothes she washes. And when I blamed him for that, you say Steve is pitiful? Isn't my daughter the one who's pitiful? Father continued. The only time you can say pitiful is if Steve does more housework than my daughter, and nevertheless I blame him unnecessarily. Are you saying it's pitiful because it's spot on and you want me to stop pointing it out? As my father relentlessly pointed out their faults, both Steve and his mother's faces turned red. Dad, let's leave it at that. You're right, but if you go on, these two might cry from embarrassment. They brought it upon themselves, yet they're so fragile. Laughing, my father's laughter made me chuckle too. What the hell? You're my wife, so of course, you should take care of me. Yes. It's enviable that you get to take care of Steve. I'd switch places with you if I could. Are they out of their minds? Do they even have brains? Steve, what you're describing isn't a wife but a slave, or maybe an unconditional mother who does everything for you. A wife should automatically take care of her husband's personal needs? Then, as a husband, you should also take care of mine. Marriage is about equality. My words made Steve freeze, and the mother-in-law became furious. "Jenny, how can you speak to Steve like that?" "Oh, I'm just teaching Steve how to be a husband. I would like him to follow it properly. Don't you think so?" "And how exactly have you been speaking to my daughter, madam?" My father and I mirrored the accusations they had made. Confronted with their own words, Steve and his mother fell silent. Really? People who can't do anything by themselves shouldn't be giving orders. All you do is tell others what to do without lifting a finger yourselves. Even when the pot tipped over last time. You seem to believe everything your mother says, but remember, I was the one who saved your precious mom. Steve widened his eyes in surprise at my words. That time, your mother was the one who attacked me while I was cooking. She caused the pot to nearly tip over, so I had to push her away to protect her. I ended up getting burned because of it. And yet, neither of you thanked me. Instead, you both blamed me. Ha, I've had enough of this house. My blunt words made Steve raise his voice. Wait, Jenny, what do you mean by enough? His face, which had been red with embarrassment, quickly turned pale. Enough means just that. I'm done with this house, with you, with everything. I'm filing for divorce. The mother-in-law grinned, pleased, while Steve froze. Wait, Jenny. I don't hate you. Maybe I got a bit carried away, it was just youthful folly. I was taking you for granted. Please understand. Youthful folly doesn't turn someone into a mama's boy. No matter what you say now, I dislike having a husband who walks arm in arm with his mother. What? It seemed that Steve had always considered such behavior normal. For the first time, he looked puzzled as if asking. That was the problem? No way we can understand each other in a lifetime. Choosing divorce is the right decision. However, the mother-in-law seemed unhappy with Steve's reaction. Steve. You don't need to hold on to such a woman. I'm here for you. She clung to him as if she were his girlfriend. But he shook her off. It's because Mom clings to me that things have gotten to this point. It's like everyone says I'm a mama's boy. It's your fault, Mom. What's wrong with being a mama's boy? You used to tell me how much you loved me. What are you talking about? I've always felt you were in the way. Please, Jenny, come back. I'll cut ties with her. What do you mean, Steve? Would you choose a woman who wants to abandon you over your own mother who raised you? Quiet. Just shut up, Mom. Traitor Steve. Heartless son. I trusted you. As a fierce argument broke out between mother and son, my father and I watched quietly for a moment, then exchanged a knowing look. Let's go home, Jenny. The atmosphere here is too toxic. Yes. It feels like even my lungs are becoming mama's boy. Thus, my brief marriage came to an end. Later, I mailed the divorce papers and successfully finalized the divorce. There was no compensation, which was fine by me as I was eager to cut ties quickly. Steve remained with his mother after saying he would cut ties, but when he tried to remarry a woman 5 years his junior, problems arose. His mother did not like the girl. Moreover, she tried to sabotage their relationship, leading to Steve finally cutting her off in anger. Later, it turned out that the girl was cheating, so the remarriage was called off, and Steve tried to reconcile with his mother. But this time, her mood did not improve. Having been repeatedly told he valued other women over his mother, she had finally had enough of him. Shocked, Steve fell into a spiral, becoming obsessed with a girl at a nightclub and ending up in debt. It's ironic that he cut ties with his mother and then couldn't handle the shock. Well, that's just like my ex-husband, always only seeing things from his point of view. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying my single life without remarrying. The company I joined after the divorce turned out to be a great fit for me since I excel in roles involving interaction with people. Thanks to my achievements there, I've been promoted quickly. Work has become more enjoyable than romance. While it's still hard for women to reach the same status as men, I'm aiming high. Holding one of the highest positions among women, it's not an impossible situation. It might still take some time, but having goals in life makes things interesting. Starting my job has broadened my social network and increased my circle of friends. Recently, I've even made friends at the sports gym I started attending with colleagues, and now we're planning a trip together. By the way, I've started dieting. No one interferes, and though it's not flashy, my days are sparkling with fun.